Well, welcome back to the Leadership Sandbox. Today, we're talking about something that sounds nice on paper, but often gets real fast in practice. What do I mean by that? Community leadership in action. Because it's one thing to sit in a room and to talk all about leadership and to talk all about our community and the difference and the change makers that we want to be. But it's another thing entirely to be handed a real organization, a real challenge or problem, real people, real stakes, real issues, and then be expected to deliver something that actually matters. This is what happened with the conversation we're going to have with three amazing women in our community in this episode, because we're diving into the Leadership Brevard Community Acceleration Project with three women who lived it from different sides of the table. We've got Shelley and Laura from the Leadership Brevard class of 2026, who were part of the project team that Monifa, the nonprofit leader on the receiving end of that work, who knows better than anyone whether this was helpful, half baked, or actually useful. And that's the conversation that I want to have today in the sandbox with you. Not just what the project was, not just what they learned, but what happened when leadership stopped being theoretical and started requiring ownership, communication, adaptability, and follow through from multiple levels in the same community that we all live, work, and play. Because leadership is not proven by how well you talk about it. It's proven when people are counting on you to deliver an outcome. So let's get into the sandbox. Ladies, welcome in. I'm so glad you're joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Monifa, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do in the world, and tell us about this project.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Monifa Watson. I'm the Executive Director of North Brevard Charities here in Titusville. And I've been in my position for going on 2 years. June will make 2 years. Yay, me. I made it 2 years.
Yay.
So North Brevard Charities is a social service agency. We provide food, shelter, clothing, helping people meet their basic needs. And our mission is to help them to create a better quality of life for themselves. We have almost 30 units of housing where we house families and a household, I'll call them, because a family can be a family of one in our program.
Mhm.
So we house families, households that are fleeing homelessness, at risk of homelessness, on the brink of homelessness, um, and we charge them only 30% of their income for rent. And that is because on a national level, it has been determined that households should be able to spend 30% or less in household expenses to be able to meet their basic needs. And living in the United States today, most of us are spending well over 50 to 60% of our income in household
Yeah.
expenses. So, in
Yeah.
order for families to stabilize, we only charge them 30% of their income in rent. So, their rent is heavily subsidized. And while they're with us, they can participate in case management and helping them to come up with goals for themselves, the children involved as well, and help them to be more financially stable,
Yeah.
increase their income if possible. Some of our seniors, our single seniors, we know that they're not really going to increase their income, so we just help them to budget what the monies that they do have. We have a food pantry for anyone in our community that might need help with their groceries,
Hmm.
and we run a thrift store. The thrift
Great.
store is our main source of income, and so people from North Brevard, from Titusville, from South Brevard, Central Brevard, they come, they donate their items to our thrift store. I didn't know thrifting was such a deal, but it's a really big deal. And so thrifters come, they purchase these items, and those donations and those shoppers really allow us to run our program as
It's great.
effectively as we can. So,
It's great.
um, I've been in social service most of my adult career, and I just feel like it's something I was born to do. I have a degree at econ, but when I was in college, I worked for a homeless shelter, and
Mm.
so I got the bug 18, 19, and I've been here ever since.
That's fantastic. And so thank you for that. And I love that you got the bug early and you're still serving the community, but serving your passion. Thank you. And I want to hear all about the project from your perspective, this community project that Lead Brevard stepped in to help solve. Tell us a little bit about that. Bottom line it for us. And I want to hear from Shelley and Laura as well with introductions, but let's get into your project first.
Sure. So, as a newbie to Titusville, one of the things I thought would really help me was knowing who the other social servants uh, in the area were, and and I didn't realize. I mean, of course, I knew, but in a county that's 70 plus miles long,
Do
there are so many needs and needs that we ourselves cannot address.
Mhm.
And I also realized that there was some duplication happening. So for for me personally, I wanted to know who else in the county was helping the individuals that my organization serves as well. And so one of the first meetings I attended was with Laura, and I'll let her talk about that initiative. And I realized that there were organizations from tip to tip that were serving the same community,
Mhm. Right.
and we want to be efficient in what we do, but we also want to be effective in what we do. And so I didn't want to step on toes. I didn't want a lot of duplication of efforts. And I realized really soon or really quickly that everyone didn't know what everyone else was doing. We didn't know how far the reaches were. We didn't know what the gaps were, and we were learning them with Laura's group. And so I really wanted to bring together most, if not all. I knew all would be a lot, but as many nonprofits in the area, in the county as we could, just one, so we would know what services are there. Two, we would talk about collaboration and partnerships because that's huge right now in the nonprofit sector, especially for funders. They like to see collaboration, and I knew that there was a lot of opportunity for that to happen, but being one, such a large county, two, there were a lot of silos that I realized were happening.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to make an effort to get as many of us in a room as possible so we could introduce ourselves to each other, so we could better serve our clients, and
Mhm.
that we would work very closely together, as close together as we could, in order to meet the needs of the most vulnerable population in our county.
Sure. So the bottom line of the project request was
The bottom line was to get us together and
okay,
introduce ourselves to each other and realize that we're in this together.
great. I love that. Okay. And then we'll hear more about what that looked like and how we did that. But first, I want to hear from Shelley with Space Coast Early Steps. So, Shelley, introduce yourself to us and tell us about what you do and what you contribute into the world that makes an impact.
Good afternoon. Thanks. Shelly Buckley. I'm the program manager, director at Space Coast Early Steps, and I have worked with the program since 2000 in a variety of different fashions. And just a few years ago, I took over as program director. It is interesting listening to Manifa and when you have the bug, when you get the bug to be
Yeah.
in some sort of nonprofit, I'll say, it stays with you. It's passion driven, definitely, and I have done early intervention now in 3 different states: Idaho, Alaska, and then once I moved here, and it's just an actual privilege to be able to work in the system. I work specifically with babies that are under age 3 that have delays or disabilities. It is part of the Federal Individualized Disabilities Education Act.
Mhm.
And so we serve babies that have established conditions like Down syndrome or cerebral palsy, all the way through to a basic I say easy speech delay, but something that seems more simple than more of a complex need. Kids with autism, we get all of those, and oftentimes we get them from as babies from the NICU. And then we also get a lot of kiddos coming at 2 that aren't talking, maybe are so full of energy, some or lots of behaviors, and parents needing that assistance. So we have developmental interventionists, occupational, physical, speech, and educational, that go out into the homes and the daycares where these babies are, so that we can coach the caregivers, be it parents or daycare providers or whatever the case may be. A lot of grandparents these days, and really make sure that they have the basis, the fundamentals that they need to advocate for their child as they move from our program into other programs, typically the school board, but often, but it can be other things, private
Yeah.
therapy, or a lot of our babies get to graduate, which is wonderful too.
Mhm.
And we also have case managers. We have 14 case managers right now that help manage the system for the family. So get them referrals for whatever they may need. Um, the program is just an essential piece. And I think that was one of the things that drew me into this particular project with Lead Brevard, was not knowing what North Brevard Charities, or NBC, really was all about, and how we could collaborate, expand the world a little bit more, on our end, not just for NBC's end. And I think it did that, but we'll talk about that later.
Thank you so much. All right, Laura, it's your turn. Tell us about who you are and what you do in the world.
My name's Laura Chacon. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm the Senior Behavioral Health Program Specialist at Parish Medical Center. I've been at Parish for almost 9 years now. Been a social worker for 30. Currently, my role is really designed. I think a few years ago, we realized we have a small community hospital. So we see a lot of folks who are struggling, with not only medical conditions, but things that really impact their health. So people that are homeless, people that can't access their medicines, people with mental health or substance use disorders. And there wasn't a lot of resources. And, I did a lot of work individually with people and with families, but those are like one-offs. So it was like, how do you get up the river and stop them from jumping in? I think there's a quote along those lines where, um, if we can figure out how to help people before it gets to the point where they're in crisis and in the hospital, then that's better for our community. So really, that's kind of what my role is. My role is to help identify, build relationships, create pathways so that the people that we serve in this community have access to the things that they need beyond just medical care. Part of that is I run the North Brevard Community Health Partnership, and that's a group of key stakeholders who come together, look at what the needs are, not only just in the agencies that we work in. We have a community health needs assessment that's done every 3 years. We look at that, other data, and then we work together on trying to figure out how to address those problems. So about a year and a half ago, community asset mapping was presented to me and to our team. And so we decided to take that project on, and it's just kind of grown from there.
That's great. So, when it comes to the project that you all worked on, and I'm curious if you could. So, if we go with the premise of we wanted to bring all the key stakeholders, if you will, together for a conversation. That's my short version. What would you say? I guess, would you define the project in any different way, Laura or
Oh, me.
Monifa?
Well, I saw the project as an extension, and I think that was part of the intention, as an extension of the work that we were already doing in our regional groups. And the word that always keeps coming back to me in any meeting that I go to is connection. It's building connections with the people in the community and the stakeholders in the community, and working together to address those needs. And so that's what it represented to me. represented.
Okay, so if we went in thinking we're going to build connection, right? This was the project we think we were going into. Where were we maybe completely wrong with our assessment? I know that's a weird way of looking at it. Where'd we miss it?
I don't think we were wrong. I think we met that.
Okay.
I mean, I
Good.
watching if at the event itself, it was really amazing to watch. People got up and I mean, what for like an hour, at least an hour and a half, everybody was talking and collaborating and meeting each other, passing out cards, working together on some scenarios to try to solve problems that were actually cases that people had had in the past. I think from our charities, right, Monifa? Some of those scenarios were actual real life cases. And so it was really kind of magical to watch that come together. So I think it really did meet that idea of connection, building those connections.
Shelley, what would you add to that?
I think just the scope of it was broader than I thought that it was going to be. When we pulled together, we had a team of 10. We each were tasked with pulling together different resources and different charities, I guess I should say, or nonprofits. And it was interesting to me. There was 413 that were reached out to,
Mm.
and we had 60, over 60, somewhere around there, that came to the event. But it was everything from dealing with pets and babies to elderly care and everything in between. And so for me, I think it was just so much more comprehensive for the reach anyway than I thought. And then it was really great when we held the event. It was interesting to see how many people you knew coming through the door,
Yeah.
but that you were like, oh, I didn't realize you did that piece or this piece. So there was still something more rich happening there than we thought was going to, than the premise of it.
It's great. So, what for you both, Shelley and Laura, at what point did it stop feeling like this is a class assignment, right? For my rite of passage through Leadership Brevard and really start feeling like true responsibility? Because I think you have a depth of responsibility in the roles that you each play in the community, anyways. But stepping outside of that into this project, where did it move from being a class assignment to feeling like the a real responsibility in the community?
I mean, for me, I think it was when we were trying to create the agenda. I think that's when the real work started. Because I think we all kind of worked on our own to find the nonprofits, to get them logged, to get their contact information. But the real work, at least for me, was really trying to figure out what does that agenda look like, who's going to be involved, what um, what does Monifa and her team want to be presented, and that's was it, and then working together with a team of people on putting that all together.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would add to that just looking at, so there was a survey that was sent out asking what is it you want to see as the individual nonprofit. So it wasn't just a canned, this is what's going to happen or what we plan. It was truly outreach of what's valuable to you in this scenario, how would you like it presented, and what do you hope to get out of it? And I felt like that really, as a nonprofit, somebody asking you that is a beautiful thing. And I feel like that was really captured in that. So for me, that's when it started to get more personal, obviously. And I feel like that it really did happen, as Laura said. It was really a very neat event.
And for the two of you working on this project over the course of the class, I mean, let's say 6 months, but I think it was probably longer. Classes are 9 months. But um, when you were assigned this or picked this up, but then you have, let's say, 8 other people in your group that come from different backgrounds, right? They don't all have nonprofit working with vulnerable populations in their resumes. So, how was that from a leadership perspective to bring together a team of people with different backgrounds, different experience, different expertise to align to a vision that Monifa cast in an application?
It was fun.
It was fun. She says ever so slightly, "What does that mean, Shelley?"
Well, I mean, Laura will hop in here too because it was a very unique group. Two of them were placed not their first choice, just because not in their wheelhouse. Um, Nuclear engineer, I believe. A
Yes.
nuclear engineer,
Yes.
firefighter.
I would not have known that two people did not pick. I mean, I know you guys
Yes.
been around, but it didn't seem like anybody was there
No.
against their will. I will tell you that. Like, I didn't pick that up at all. Like, not
Right?
even a little bit. This is news to me, Shelley. I didn't.
Don't
Don't tell me
tell.
which
Don't
two.
tell.
I'll look at you guys different.
Yeah, well, it was very interesting because you could tell the people that are there that are more like-minded, like this is what we do all the time versus eh, versus profit and nonprofit even, or military versus not, or it was really cool to watch the team. So I will say I think part of our struggle was like who takes lead, who doesn't. Personalities pop right out and you see all of these interesting things happen in front of you. And so that in and of itself was a learning piece. And then just to watch everybody take their background and what's personal for them and important and pour it into this. There were times where we were all like, just, is this person really engaged, or did they do their homework? Maybe not, kind of thing. Some people felt like I'm doing it all, and other people felt like you can do it all. You had the gamut of everything. But on game day, everybody showed up. Everybody on that team pulled their weight plus. We had one of them had a grandbaby born at the event, during the event, not at the event, during the event. And everybody just pitched in for that. And we really started to gel as a team so much more as we got closer and closer to the event. So I think it was just a really cool evolution of all that.
That's great. Laura, how about from your perspective?
I mean, I think group work is interesting because it is humans are interesting and we're complicated and we have different ideas and backgrounds. And there was a part of me because of the work that I'm already doing. I was like, well, I don't want to like automatically take over because because this is the work that I do through the on some level through the North Brevard CHP. So when we were identifying leaders, I'm like, well, let me step back. Let's, because I want other people to grow from this as well. Um, and then I think there came a point in time where I think, I kind of needed to step in a little bit more. And so I did. But I think that all of us got along really well. Like there wasn't any personality issues or anything like that. I think, like Shelley said, I think by the time we were at the end and at the event, we all just clicked and we made it work, and it was a beautiful experience. So,
Well, what I love is that your client did not know that there were people from not only just different backgrounds, but that might have been, kind of on the sideline of, am I really sure I want to stick myself out there for this? Not that it's not a worthy cause, but not knowing it. And isn't that so true with leadership? Even with people that absolutely get like nonprofit work, right? Or absolutely get what'd you say, with a nuclear engineer? You can put 5 nuclear engineers on a project in a room and they're all going to approach it with their different background and
Right.
influence and their different perspective and the view from their chair and going toward, hopefully we've identified the actual outcome. And what I celebrate is what I'm hearing, because you had different parts, different people, different experience and background coming together to one project. The clarity that was brought was, what is the outcome? What does success look like? And so often I think we miss that in teams of leaders. We don't necessarily identify what does success look like and how do we know we've got it when we've got it. And it sounds like, and I'm celebrating and acknowledging, that's what you did with your CAP project. You identified, and Monifa, I'd love to hear from your perspective, just that from a what you cast as vision of what the need was, how you feel the team, brought together the outcome that you were going for. Did we have any missteps? Were we really all aligned? What was your experience there?
So there was a day that so Laura and I have a relationship outside of this project because I am a member of her group. And so there was a day I called her and I was like, do you guys hate me? Like I just felt like they hated me because I just
Oh.
I tried I tried to articulate my vision, and then there were a couple of people they ran with it, like literally ran. But in their running, like maybe mid run, I was like, no, 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 this I hold on, just wait a minute. I'm not sure this is exactly going in the direction that I wanted to go in. So there was this call where there was tension, whether they hated me or not, there was tension because they had gotten to where they felt was halfway. And I was like, just stop because I'm not sure this is what I want right now. And so at that point, I felt there was not as much cohesion, but it wasn't for them not a lack of trying. What the whole thing was, they took the vision and ran. And then I was like, wait, hold on, pull it back, pull it back. Let me restructure mentally. And then I was able to get with my team, kind of get it back to where I wanted it to go. I brought it back to them, and then they started running again. I know that they just wanted direction, but I also couldn't they ran quickly. So it was it was so fast that it was running faster than I had time to like really process. And so the best thing about them was I didn't have to do it. Like that was the best thing because all I did was say, this is what I want. And I knew my team couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I don't know how much to express. I think I'm gonna get emotional. Like it wouldn't have got done without them. It just wouldn't. And so I'm so grateful to them for this. And so in the beginning there were a couple of people, although I would never be able to say who was there by choice and who wasn't. There were
That's good. You don't
a,
need to.
there were
They
a
all
few
wanted to be there.
yes, there were a couple of people who said, I'll take the reins. And I I knew Laura could have. I knew she totally could have because my vision was piggybacking off of work that she had already created and worked through. So I knew she could have, and I didn't have any qualms about her not. But she was my closest friend in the group. So if I was going to call anybody, I'm like, do you guys hate me? It would be Laura. So and I was like, what happened in that meeting? This was awful.
Nobody hated you.
So in the beginning, you could tell a couple of people were working and a couple of people were just kind of sitting back waiting to be told,
Sure.
go get some crackers. I don't know. They were just kind of waiting. But the people who took the helm and took the lead were like, no, everybody's going to pull their weight. Like they ensured that everybody pulled their weight. And to Shelley's point, there were some who weren't going to go full in, but game day,
They showed up.
everybody was on in place on point. Everyone.
So, what did that process for you, Monita, as the um, community leader? Really, like this was your want and your need, and you put that out there. You cast vision for what you wanted, but at some point, you felt like the train was going a bit off a different track than what I'm hearing than what you anticipated or what you think you wanted. What'd that show for you in your leadership style or when it comes to casting vision or making a powerful request for what you want?
Yeah, it made me. I realized that one, I need to be really here, especially with a group with a timeline. Like they had a timeline.
Yeah.
If we had to stretch that out, I mean, we might have gone back and forth a little bit, and then the vision would not have been manifest. It just wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So I don't like deadlines. They make me very anxious and very nervous. But because that we had one, it it was the reason that we were able to make it happen.
So, what did this expose for you, Monifa, personally? Just like what showed up as a leader when you talk about, like, you came in and at some point had to kind of wave the white flag and go, hold on a minute. This is it's going faster, but did I cast the right vision? Are we going down the right track? And you brought that in to ask the question of, am I annoying people with my questions or whatever? So, tell me what you feel it exposed for you as a leader.
So what came up for me at that moment or in that day was one, clarity, being really clear myself what it is that I wanted. I have vision all day, every day, right? So, but giving that vision to someone else and expecting them to read my mind, that doesn't work. So when I gave it to them, I was clear what I wanted the end result to be, but I wasn't really sure about all of the mid steps. And
Mhm.
so I don't believe that as a leader you have to know the mid steps. I think that that's why you employ people who that's their expertise. They can do that. And I didn't employ them, but they did exactly that. Like they went to work very, very, very fast. And I think what worked for us was the deadline. They needed to get it done. They wanted to get it done. And we even had a pass that we didn't have to have it done by such and such a date, but we at least had to have it planned. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, hell no, we got to do this because if I lose them, it might not happen. So I was on board with that deadline just as much as they were. So I think knowing your team, and we didn't have the luxury of knowing each other. We just didn't have that. Knowing your team, their expertise, all of that would definitely help. But the fact that I had a group of leaders who were determined to do the project, I had the vision and I was determined to see it come to fruition the way I saw it. That to me was a very winning formula because they were willing workers for and I will say that they were invested in my vision. So sometimes even with my staff, I might say, hey, do this, do that. And they're like, Monifa, we don't need, why? We don't see it this way. Why would we do it this way? You're wrong. But even if they thought, the CAP team thought I was wrong, they're like, listen, this is what she wants. This is what she gets. And that worked out very well. They were invested in giving me what I asked for. And they did it very well.
That's good. That's really good. So I'm curious from Laura and Shelley, from your perspective, what did you deliver that you believe will still matter to Monifa and her organization 6 months from now?
Well, I think it's a step and a progression of continued work because even yesterday or the day before, I ran into one of the presenters and just, thanked them, again for participating. And they're like, wow, I didn't think there was going to be a lot of people showing up or that there was going to be the impact, but it was amazing. And so they had nothing but praise um, about it. So people are still talking about it, I guess, is my point. And so I think we're going to see future events like this and continued collaboration and connection. So
That's great. Shelley, what from your perspective would you say this project is going to still be producing in 6 months? The impact.
Exactly the same thing as Laura said. The contacts that were developed out of it, not just for Monifa, but like on our side of the fence for our nonprofit, we were able to get all of those contacts as well. So it just grew everybody's piece of the puzzle. And then knowing that we've got, hey, let's do this again in the future. And I don't know if it was unanimous or if it was the bulk, but it was an overwhelming, resounding yes, let's do this. That really resonates. I had staff from our program that went and they just couldn't believe they had never heard of this or that nonprofit before. How did I miss that? And, this was so cool because now I've got them in my, Rolodex, so to speak.
Rolodex. Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. The old
There you
school.
go.
We'll kick it Rolodex.
That's right.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, to expand the network. And I love that because it sounds like it expanded the network beyond just for Monifa and her organization, right? It actually expanded the network for each of your organizations as well and your personal connections. And we know that in a community like ours, the north to south 72 miles, we're very much into developing leaders here in Brevard County in Florida and so many other communities across the country that have a leadership um, program like ours. Those connections are so important to really build that sense of belonging and network in the community, right? And you never know who's out there. So I love that for you. I think that's great. So Monifa, my question for you is, what do you feel actually moved the needle with this project of bringing, how many did you all have again? 61, 62
It
that
was
showed up at the
we
event?
had
Is that
about
right?
almost 200 individuals. It's
Individuals.
177 individuals, and I think it was 60 or 70 organizations.
That were represented. Yeah. So what did this team deliver in their CAP project for Leadership Brevard? What will soon become, after their May 7th graduation, the best class ever of 2026. You'll get to actually say that, right? What do you feel, Monifa, that this team delivered that moved the needle, if you will, for your organization?
I don't know what they didn't. They divided and conquered, right? And they went to work immediately. So they they all had a different industry to research. They really went about locating and finding and inviting all of the organizations that showed up. The CAP team did the inviting. They decided who was going to get an invitation. They decided what industry um, should be invited, and that's what they did. And putting together the agenda, that's when it all
Right.
fell into place.
So what I'm curious about is, Monifa, what do you feel as you look at the outcome and the end result of this project for your organization? I'm curious about how you see this impacting your future, right here in Brevard County. What did you see the impact was? How does it move the needle for your organization in Brevard County?
So I could say it put us on the map. We were on the map. People knew who we were. But to Shelly's point, what do you guys do? Where are you? What? So it it gave us exposure, and that was great. But I think forever, the nonprofit community who was there that will say, remember that event North Brevard Charities and Lee Brevard put on? Remember that time we came together? Remember when we heard from Angelica? Remember she talked about partnerships? Wait a minute, there's an organization that I met at the summit, and people will always remember this event as a place where they met someone, where they learned of something, and maybe some of them will remember North Brevard Charities. I'm not sure. They might say, "Who's that organization that put that on?" And I'm okay with that. My goal, and it totally came to pass. My goal was that you meet someone, you connect with someone, you work with someone that's going to make your work a little bit easier, and it's going to be impactful to somebody that you serve. And if North Brevard Charities names comes up because of it, absolutely terrific. But they're always going to remember this event. Always.
That's great. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to toss it to Shelly because I'm curious as we're wrapping up here. And I appreciate this conversation so much. If every leader in they're in Brevard or in their individual community, depending on where they're listening to this. It's learning about community acceleration programs with a leadership fill in the county or, you know, uh, of their affiliation, a leadership program like Lead Brevard. If every leader had this kind of real world exposure, and I'm not talking just about to a nonprofit, because let's take it out of, because there was a lot of different community acceleration projects that impacted a lot of different types of organizations. If every leader had this kind of real world exposure early on, what would change in the community that they serve in their community, whether here in Brevard, what would change? Or up in Tallahassee or wherever they live?
Short answer for me would be ownership. It has been really enlightening to me to see, regardless of profit, nonprofit, how without one another we don't exist.
Mm,
It truly doesn't matter what my particular genre of work is. It matters that what I do supports that person that's at your office, because they're, for us, I'm supporting, helping our program, I should say, is supporting that family so that that
mhm,
family can then get up, go to work the next day doing whatever it is that they do, knowing that they're doing what they need to for their family. That works the same for North Brevard and for Laura's group. Like, they know that they're a building block that without each other we would fail. So
mhm,
with all the technology that's coming through our world here in Brevard County, you still have to have all of these essential pieces or that won't go anywhere. So
mm.
for me, just being able to have that broader scope and view of how we all play together in the sandbox is just amazing and personal growth for me. And it's one that I am passing on to our program and every single staff member that's here.
It's great. I love that. Thank you for that. Laura, I'm going to ask you the same question. If every leader had this kind of real world exposure early on, what would change in their community?
So for me, Lead Brevard was really about. I've always been a big believer in connection and how much how we are all connected. But I think on some level, just in my social services, not that I'm in a bubble because I'm out there quite a bit, but you forget about all the other industries that are so vital to your community, whether it's the space center, the port, the art industry, like every piece of, I mean, everybody is important and all the connections really make a difference in the way that you view the world and the way that you communicate with others, and just having a broader understanding really could reshape some of the issues that we're having in our world. So I really think that if leaders had the opportunity early on to understand those connections and how important it is, that we'd be in a better place for sure. So.
That's great. All right, Monifa, and anything you want to add into that as a response of real world exposure for leaders early on? What would change in the community?
We invited um, our some of our council. We invited our elected officials on purpose. We wanted at first we were going to have them speak or at least be on a panel, but I also thought it was much more impactful for them to hear what was going on in the county. So they sat amongst social service providers. They sat amongst those who were doing the work, and we could talk amongst ourselves all day. We already know we're under resourced, we're tired. Um, but I thought it was very important for our elected officials to hear. And at least two of them talked to me afterwards and say, how do I plug into some of the local groups? How do I hear what's going on? How can I be involved? And I think that that was extremely beneficial. Um, I love Laura's word connection, but I also think understanding is so important, especially in the work we do. I can help someone based on what I think, what I feel, my own experience, but if I can understand their experience, there's another level of empathy that I'm going to give. And most of us in this line of work, we are empathic, period. That's why we're here. We wouldn't be here if we weren't. But there are others in for-profit world, in the government world, they may not have that level of empathy. So doing something like this brings a sense of awareness that I don't think is happening in circles all over the country. And I believe that if we can come together and connect and bring awareness, there's so much that we'll be able to do for vulnerable populations, for disenfranchised populations, and even within the nonprofit community. What I do housing. Shelly does youth, young people. Some people did do animals, right? Like I'm thinking housing. We got to fix the housing, and people are like, but what about the dogs? So there's awareness. There was awareness all across the board, and I think that definitely helped with providing services for people and just being a community and a city that cares.
That's great. Well, ladies, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing the story about your project and your organizations and the impact that community leadership can make when we bring together different viewpoints, different needs, different skill sets to create an outcome toward a vision and a really a common good. And I love that. And I'm grateful for the time that you've all invested here today, because this episode really is proof that leadership development matters when it leaves the classroom and enters into the community, that it's not just what happens at a desk or on a Zoom call or in a classroom, that it actually happens with boots on the ground. And that's where we remove the mask, we remove the title, we remove the even the education that so many people can be so passionate about, that I have this degree or I have this title and this is who I am. It takes off the masks, right? And it's where our communication tools get tested, as we talked about, right? Did I say that I want? Did I cast the right vision? Are we going too fast? Do we need to put the brakes on? Right? All of that is true. Those dynamics get real, right? The team dynamics. And I am grateful that y'all brought your leadership into the conversation for a great outcome that I believe is going to have a longer impact than you even realize right now. And I loved what Munifa said, that there's going to be people for a long time that are talking about remember when, remember that event, remember those connections. And each of you made a difference for the community and made the community stronger. You developed leaders and developed as individuals, and I am grateful for that. So thank you so much for being in the Leadership Sandbox with me today. And I wish you all the great success that I know you are up to, and appreciate the work that you do in our community every single day. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you
Thank you
for
so much.
having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me in the sandbox today. You know, I say it all the time. Leadership is not something you're born with. It's something that you grow into. And you took time to hear about community leadership at a whole nother level, and how you can grow into that and own that and be a change maker in your community. Thanks for joining me. Make it a great day.